Well, according to internal agency correspondence, dangerous surgical devices and possibly counterfeit medical supplies have flowed unchecked into the operating rooms at the VA.
So what does this mean for the safety of our heroes? Joining us now with more details and coverage on the story from the Washington Times is Jim McElhatton. Good morning, Jim. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
When you first hear about this, I mean, unbelievable. If businesses are trying to cut costs, you can see them doing that with like printers or office supplies, not medical supplies, maybe a lawnmower, but not something you're going to be doing surgery with. Explain how this all went down.
Absolutely. We were investigating a separate contracting scandal, got back a lot of records from the VA, and we were going through them, and we saw these concerns in there where suppliers, most notably Johnson & Johnson, had expressed concern to VA back in 2012 about the fact that there were what's called the gray market medical supplies coming into VA medical centers. These are, in some cases, surgical devices that are made or supposedly made by Johnson & Johnson's, but they're coming from outside Johnson & Johnson's official supply chain, meaning, according to Johnson & Johnson, these supplies could be stolen, they could be counterfeit, they could be defective. And so Johnson & Johnson wasn't the only supplier raising concerns about this, but certainly it was the most notable.
So I want to put up a quote on the screen. This is from Paul Smith. He's the account director for government accounts at Johnson & Johnson. He said, quote, "The products being sold may not have been stored properly, high temperature, high humidity, no pest control, etc., which could create patient risk." It sounds like it sure could. Do we know of any patients who were affected by this? Do we know that these supplies were actually used in operating rooms?
So that's from the actual correspondence from the company to the VA, and this was not a hypothetical situation. Johnson & Johnson provided a list of VA medical centers in about a half a dozen states, saying these are just a few of the examples. And in one case, there was a VA medical center in South Carolina where supplies were arriving in rubber bands and plastic wrap. So again, this isn't trash bags or paper towels. We're talking surgical devices. And VA says, that it's a concern, that they now have processes in place to, safeguard this from happening. But certainly the fact that as recently as 2 years ago, we have a major medical supplier raising concerns about the extent to which goods, surgical devices could have been entering into VA operating rooms that were counterfeit or stolen was remarkable.
Yeah, hearing about, I mean, these are fake, they're bogus. Are these allegations or used, or the other thing that we were hearing about is the reverse auction, so going to the lowest bidder rather than the highest bidder. Is that something that you think should be done for our heroes, and is anything really being done to combat that?
So there's this sort of separate, this is the context here, the VA's reverse auction process, and nobody really has an issue necessarily with the reverse auctions themselves. There's some questions about the oversight about them. There was recently a VA Inspector General audit which raised some questions about the contractor overseeing these reverse auctions. So, these concerns occurred in the context of these reverse auctions, and there were multiple concerns, and this was one of them.
Jim McElhatton, Washington Times. Great scoop. Thanks a lot for bringing this to our attention.
Thanks.